in a professional setting, a lot of us, we never say no and that's wrong at all. But I think the no and that's wrong is so clear because it very precisely defines what you're not going to do. The perfect transition from the Lego blocks conversation, Pritesh, is this idea of innovation. And everyone talks about like, hey, we are a technology company. Yeah, everyone has tech. And the thing that I want to start off with is this. I would love for you to talk about the difference between building homegrown technology versus plumbing things together. Because I think that's a very interesting, like a lot of people think that plumbing things together is innovation too, right? And so I want to respect that. So can I talk through your thinking around what is homegrown and then kind of what's plumbing? Maybe start with the plumbing first.
Yeah, it's interesting and funny enough, I really think that real estate brokerages, this one particular segment inside of real estate, is plumbing tech, right? Like as a joke, we used to keep calling that. And like you said, it's still innovation. Like it still requires some thinking to like say, take this piece from one place, take this other software from some other place, plumb it together. But an average, if you look at an average press release out there that comes out about some kind of innovation in real estate brokerages, you'll just see like it's like integrated with software XYZ, or like, you know, even like a standard single sign-on is sometimes called innovation in the industry, right? So it's tricky. But like,
but hold on, like can you so explain that? So give me just break down like, hey, what would be an example of a few different pieces of technology or tools with this kind of single sign-on layer? Like explain what that would be just so it can bring it to life.
Let's just talk about our history, right? Like our own history. We used to have a software that managed all our transaction processing. We used to have a software that managed all our accounting. And we had built a little bit of software that like kind of managed our you know, rev share payouts and stuff like that, right? Now, what is the experience with that? The experience with that is you then try to figure out how can we give our agents a single sign-on, which means login with Google is a typical example of single sign-on, right? That logs into 3 different systems or 4 different systems. Another system that paid out agents, right? So like that process your payments, right? And then the agents, you know, they use the technology for what it is worth, right? So they go, okay, if you work with Real Brokerage, you have 4 things 4.coms you remember, and there has that login with Real Brokerage, and it just click on that and stuff happens, right? That's standard, what I call plumbing technology. Like 4 different products exist, you put them together, and it comes with its pros and cons. Pros is you're live. You got your brokerage license, you're live, right? The con is that you don't know any better until you know better.
What does that mean?
Well, so for example, today, like you get asked on a daily basis, like how many agents do you use your technology? And when you say 100%, did people lose their mind? It's like, how is this possible, right? It's because you can't do business in our company if you don't use the app. It's just like not possible, right? And then the experience is just exponentially better because you have an app and everything just seems to connect with each other. Everything makes sense. If you're using a third-party product, you're mired with like workarounds, is what I call them. Like, hey, let's use an example. For a lease, an option to have percentages in a certain place doesn't make sense. Can I disable it? Or can I not show that to my agents? Best of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have plumbing on one side, and a lot of times the reason we do this, and we should actually tell the truth on this one, is the reason we do that is because the average everyday brokerage, regardless of size, and as far as us being publicly traded, we see all the numbers. As far as regardless of size, the margins are not often there or are not allocated for us to invest in innovation in a lot of ways. And that's what you and I started talking about, which is the idea of this ROI on innovation, right? And if we can say, hey, there are these 4 tools that need to get plumbed together to be utilized so that they're functionally gets the agents working, that's one thing. And do you think it's the margin component, the economic component that actually drives innovation, or is it something else?
Depends. So if you're a company that's a traditional software company, the margins are incredible. The multiples are insane, right? So you're very motivated to like, look at a traditional AI company right now, right? You're very motivated to just burn millions of dollars because you know 5 years from now or 8 years from now or 10 years from now, you will leapfrogged everybody else and nobody can catch up.
Yeah.
Brokerage, like, you know, but like brokerage is not that. Brokerage is is a tight margin business, especially in today's environment with everything that's going on. There is going to be compression in margins, and like who's suited to win the most?
Yeah.
The most competitive will be the ones who win.
Yeah.
What does most competitive mean? That means compression of margins even for brokerages, like the burden is shared across the board. Okay, so now you start asking yourself, well, licensing a tool, let's say we're paying $10 a month for a tool, right? Today we have like a little over 16,000 agents, right? $160,000 a month times 12.
Yep.
Right? And for a bad experience. So that's just one tool, right? So when you start talking about ROI for investment, like the immediate ROI might not be visible, but if you truly think that it's going to go the way you want it to go, then there is ROI, right?
So I'll give you a crazy story, and this is going to get us a lot of smileys and hate, which is exactly what we should talk about. I spend a lot of times talking with agents and teams who want to consider joining Real or other companies, and it's totally fine. It's no pitch. And they ask me two questions, which is very interesting to me. Question number one is, hey, we want to be a part of a stable brokerage. Tell us about your profitability, your stability, how much money you make, et cetera. That's question number one, right? And the second question is, hey, can I get a better deal, right? So if you think about it, the two questions are fundamental odds with each other. Is on one side, you say, hey, I want to see and I want to be and I want to partner with a brokerage that is financially stable, that can create so much value for me. In the same context, on the other side, we ask, how much of a better deal can I get from my economics overall? Now, interestingly, we were fortunate, which is in our last company that we built, we had 700 plus agents. We were doing $5+ billion in sales. We sold the business to Douglas Elliman. But the key there was everybody knew that several of our agents were on different plans based on their production or when they joined us or what have you. And I think the one thing that the modern day brokerage has done is to say, hey, we have one plan that we work with everybody. And that allows us, not from any other perspective, it allows us a precedent for everybody to work and play in the same sandbox. And second, it allows us as the company to allocate and budget well so that we can say, hey, we have to run the business on X amount of dollars or X percentage of margin so that we can go do powerful things with it. So now here's my question for you. My question for you is, there's no lack of things to build. If we looked at kind of our backlog of ideas, we have ideas that we can build stuff for 10 plus years. And we, both the business and technology, we are forced with this idea of prioritizing what we build. And so when you have an idea that you're looking at and you're thinking, maybe it's an organic rubric in your head, maybe it's a functional rubric that you can share, what is the ROI of that innovation? Like, how do you take an idea and say, hey, we should do idea A versus idea B right now? How do you think about that?
So it's a great question. So depending on the stage of the company, the answer is different, right? Like, let's go back in history 3 years ago when we just got started, little under 1,000 agents, like probably 500 agents doing any kind of real business, right? Like, this is 3.5 years ago. At that point, you're in YOLO stage, right? You're like, you don't even know if it's going to work or not. So you say, let's just expect this to work and let's build for a future where these margins are going to actually work out, right? So when you look at our margins 3 years ago, everybody would have predicted that this is not going to work because of just how tight the margin is that they have experienced. And they're right. They are right in the way they were thinking about it. They know what the cost of operational cost is, and they know the cost of licensing third-party software, and they know the pain in integration. So they know like the margins this tight, just not going to work, right? The only calculation they can't do is like how crazy are the people on the other side and how much of, gamble are they willing to do. So making decisions at that point is more faith-driven decisions or like mission-driven decisions, right? You just go, this is the only option, we're going to build. When things start working out, like fast forward today and you're like 16,000 agents, now the mentality is different. Now you go, we have discipline now, right? So we go, okay, what are the most important parameters? Growth, revenue.
Yeah.
So everything goes through that matrix and you say, is this going to impact growth? Is it going to impact revenue? Is it going to reduce churn? Like some parameters and then you go, how much? And then you say, what is, like, you build KPIs of success for it. And then you compare it with other projects that also have those parameters and what their KPIs of success is. And then you say, which one do you do first? And the answers become very obvious. And they're sometimes painful because those are not the projects you want to work on.
Well, let's talk about that one. I think as founders, and I actually believe whoever is listening right now, maybe you're a real estate agent, you're a mortgage broker, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're a brokerage owner, you're a fintech person, you're running a prop tech startup, and if you're an investor, you know this. There's a founder mentality in a lot of what we do because that's why you were here. And I think founders romanticize a lot with features. The founder feature romance is insane. Like you and I, there are like the wealth plan, like you and I, there's a romance with that. And we know that it can be so much better. And we have this romanticization with the features. But I also think that the innovative, creative folks that work with us, product managers, developers, et cetera, they also want to work on exciting things. Because if they're just building tables and, pushing pixels on buttons, they're like, well, this is not exciting. I'm not changing the world. And that's, the end finished product is not exciting. So how do you find the balance between kind of that romance of building sexy things versus building prioritized functional things?
Well, I think, again, it goes back to what stage do these product managers join, right? Like, so when we, specifically talking about product managers, when we interview product managers, my favorite question to ask them, because I know the answer, is, do you want to launch product fast? Right? And they 100% of them have some kind of story where there were 1,000 reasons why they couldn't launch something in their previous job, right? And I promise them that you will launch more things in 1 year than you've launched in like 7 years in your previous career, right? However, it's going to come with pain. So because the thing is, like, the options to we don't get to get it wrong. We don't have the luxury of getting it wrong. We got to get it right, nearly right. And we got to launch very early. So, going back to how do you keep it exciting for product managers, I think there's like a fine line of marriage there, right? Like, you can't build for the sake of building, but at the same time, you can't just make everything boring, or else you lose talent, right? So inspiring people, empowering people, and internally we say this all the time, we have no committees. The day we have committees, we're dead on arrival. Because now you don't have enough, what is a committee? You don't have enough confidence in yourself to make a decision. So I'm going to find 5 other people who will agree, but nobody will unanimously agree. And you will say, I asked 5 people, they all seem to say yes. So we did it, right? And that sucks. But honestly, that's the difference between Apple and probably IBM, unfortunately, right? Like, it's like probably driven by committees versus Apple is probably driven by like, hey, one person just like says, we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, we'll say it failed, and like you go on to the next thing. Tesla probably a similar example of like, imagine running Tesla with committees, or like even SpaceX with committees. Oh my God.
Well, it's crazy that you said this. This brings me to a very important point. As leaders, in a lot of ways, especially when you have a work hard, be kind attitude, we want to be inviting and accepting of ideas, etc. And she challenged me with something. My coach challenged me. She says, I want you to say these 2 phrases as often as possible today. I said, what are they? She goes, I want you to say no. And I want you to say, that's wrong. I was like, wait, what? She's like, I want you to say no, and that's wrong. And she goes, and it's even better if you can tie them together. And so today someone said to me, hey, what about this and this idea? Like so-and-so said. I was like, no, that's wrong. And if you, in a professional setting, a lot of us, we never say no, and that's wrong at all. But I think the no and that's wrong is so clear because it very precisely defines what you're not going to do. And that allows me to ask, that I've done this thing with you often, which is this premortem idea, right? And so when you often say, hey, if we are going to build a Zillow competitor starting today, that's dead on arrival. Well, the operative word for some people is on arrival. For some people, it's just dead, right? So if you take the dead components, dead on arrival, well, can we analyze, before we put all the resources into doing something into a postmortem, can we just assume that we already built it and do a premortem around it? I know that you do a lot of premortems with the team. Like, can you talk quickly about the premortem idea and how it's probably helped?
Yeah, I mean, I love the premortem idea. And like, because postmortems suck. Everything has gone wrong already, right? Okay, you can do a postmortem and you can like say, okay, we learned our lessons, and you do another postmortem. But premortems are fun. You know why? On day 1 of the project, you make a list of all the things that could go wrong. Exhaustive. Like, spend 2 hours making a list of everything that could go wrong, possibly could go wrong, and then build a plan to address that, not do that. The likelihood of needing a postmortem is going to drop listen, you still forget something, whatever. But like the idea is to like try to anticipate failure.
Yeah.
There's another main, like the no thing, going back to like saying no. I say this all the time and I hate repeating this in our team, is like the higher you are, your job becomes no's. You say a lot of no's because you have to. If you say yes to everything, it's a shit show. So, you have to say no's to a lot of things, and then the bright ideas bubble up. But I love premortems because it de-risks everything for me. It works all the time.
Well, here's the thing that I often talk about. When a lot of times people will say, hey, I want to achieve X goal, whatever that may be. I want six-pack abs. I want to make $1 million. I want to have a great relationship, all of that. And then the question is like, hey, Sharran, how do you want to do that? And I say, hey, like, that's not the question to ask. The question to ask is, let's ask an easier question. And the easier question is, what can you do that will guarantee failure, right? It's a beautiful question to ask. And you could say, well, if I want six-pack abs, what would be something that I can do that will guarantee failure? Well, I don't sleep well. I don't drink a lot. I eat potato chips all the time. I never work out. I always take the car. I don't do any exercise. Like, you can make a list of the things that are going to guarantee failure. And all you do is you say, I'm not going to do that thing. That's it.
That's it.
And so I think the premortem in a lot of ways is just that. It is forcing ourselves to say, what is my guaranteed to fail list? And if I just know from an awareness perspective not to do that thing, something amazing starts to happen, right? This brings me to like another question, which is, you talked about the no's. What is as entrepreneurs get, for high achieving entrepreneurs, salespeople that are wanting more innovation, saying no is difficult. And because they're wired to new opportunities, they're wired to new things, they're wired to saying yes often. And the high D, high I relationship-based folks who our industry is primed with, they are wired to say yes. And no is is tough. What advice do you have for somebody to like get really dialed in and feel comfortable and grounded in their ability to say no?
Define success. Once you can define success in pretty much everything, right? From your marriage to your professional life to taking care of your kids, whatever it is, right? You can define success. Once you've defined success, it becomes, at least for me personally, it starts becoming very easy. You ask yourself a question saying, do I have to do this to achieve success? If the answer is no, then you probably should be saying no, because there's got to be something else you got to be doing to achieve success that you define, right? And distraction is also a fast way of like not achieving what you want to achieve. So almost everything is a distraction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to get excited about something. Super easy. But it's very hard to focus, and just stick to a plan that you created ahead of time, right? So if you did a premortem, you created a plan, you said, I'm going to do this, then that's what you should be doing. And everything else is possibly a distraction or something you do later and you put it on your to-do bucket, right?
I think I liked what you said. It's key. You didn't say distraction just doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. There's a now and not now. It's just a not now bucket, right?
It's not a not now bucket.
There's a great quote. I can't remember where this came from. It says, focus is more important than intelligence. And I always kind of struggled with that. I was thinking, wait a minute, there are people out there, because how many times have you and I seen somebody and you're like, man, I'm smarter than that dude, or I'm more talented than that dude, or like I look at it with my children. And my son's way more talented than the others. Why is he better at it? And if he can do it, I can do it. And I think it's a focus thing. Focus is way more important than intelligence. But here's the second thing, and this goes to the heart as we wrap this up, is to do great things, we must do fewer things.
Yeah, that's right.
Like every time I say that, I get like goosebumps, and then I'm like, man, I'm not doing fewer things right now. And so how do you react to do great things, we must do fewer things?
I love that phrase, and I know you love that phrase a lot. I agree with the focus, and like this is something like even with kids, I say focus, and I say it out loud. Just, almost kind of possibly annoying. The other thing that I truly, truly believe is this world has too many smart people, right? It does. It has many smart people. And I was never the smartest in my class. I was never the smartest but there are not many people who have the grit or the ability to deal with adversity. There's a really great talk that I just heard. I'll put it in the comment section somewhere, where someone was talking to a class of Stanford kids, and he said, like, the one thing I hope for you guys is that you fail on your first project. It's because you go to Stanford, that basically means you did everything right. You got the right grades in school, you did your extra AP classes, whatever, you went to Stanford, right? Like, now everything has gone right in your life. And guess what happens when you go to your first professional project? You fail, and most people don't come out of it. Most people don't know how to react to failure, and they can't give up or whatever. So the earlier you fail, the more likely you're going to build grit, which is what you need. It's very easy to give up, right? And move on to the next sexy thing or whatever next shiny object. The problem is, like, there's so many smart people, but not too many people who are willing to go that extra mile, right? So in my opinion, grit, focus, and do less things, right?
So bring us home on this one as we talk about the ROI of innovation. You said something about the project managers. I want to bring that back, which kind of stuck with me. You talked about releasing things often, shipping things more. I love this golden quote. He's like, just ship it. And sometimes there's this fine balance between shipping crap and actually shipping an MVP or shipping something that works. Maybe you ship it to a group that is forgiving and is testing and is helpful on that. How much do you tie this concept of the ROI of innovation to shipping more often?
Well, the thing is, specifically with software, the entropy starts as soon as you finish the work. In my opinion, like, you should do as little as possible to not feel crappy for a mature audience and just launch it. And a successful launch, in my opinion, is everybody's upset and is looking for features. That's a very successful launch. You know why? Because they're all using it. They're all using the product and they're upset that it doesn't do exactly what they wanted it to do, right? You launch a perfect product, nobody uses it. You build something nobody cares about, right? So I would rather have a lot of people complaining and we do 1.1, 1.2, iterate really fast to accommodate the complaint than to try to accommodate everybody and you never build it because, like, there's always something. And even internally, when we talk about, like, alpha, beta, alpha is like a small group of people. You watch them click every button, right? You have to be very discerning of what's a feature request and what's a bug, because most people are giving you feature requests in reviews, right? They're not giving you what doesn't work. Most people are like, it would be great to have this. That doesn't mean you don't launch it. It means write it down and put it for 1.1, right? Unless the launch is going to fail because of this, unless it's an oversight, like, and that nobody can help you. You gotta have that gut feeling. You gotta know your audience. You gotta know the product that you're building, and you have to make a decision without a community.
Well, I think this brings us to a great point in this, which is, while Pritesh was sharing this related to a software-based implementation, I think this impacts us in every implementation in our lives. So if you are a real estate agent kind of coming up with a marketing piece, if you're a mortgage broker thinking about, hey, how do you actually announce this product? If you're a property company saying, hey, do I actually build this deck and take it to market? All of those can be wrapped in this idea of, hey, you want to ship something. As Pritesh said, you want to ship something where people are giving you feedback. You want to ship something where it feels like it's broken. You want to ship something where you know that you got that first part out, because then when you get 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 is really powerful. I've seen so many entrepreneurs that spend 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 months working on their deck. In fact, if they had literally had a 4-circle diagram and they had talked to 3 investors, they've gotten more feedback on their deck overall. So from the perspective of ROI of innovation, think about this. No matter what you're building, no matter what you're creating, the faster you fail, the more and more you could ship, the more you learn, and that's what's going to get you the product and the vision of your dreams.